So was it hard for you to stop eating meat because you ate meat 3 times a day?
You showed me those videos, right? But then I went on and I looked at health videos, right? From people who are researching plant-based foods, right? And all the new science that's coming out in support of eating plants, right? Remember we started with simple foods because of Dr. McDougall, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, before we moved on to Dr. Greger's advice, right? Mm-hmm. But Dr. McDougall told us, you know, just pick like six of your favorite starches and vegetables and recipes and just go with that, right? Regularly. So I remember we ate a lot of cereals and things like that, right? So high fiber cereals and oatmeal, right? Lots of fruits, and then of course whatever veggies I can eat. And the funny thing is that after you eat it for like 2-3 weeks, right? You really start to, you know, appreciate the different flavors. You know, meat has a certain flavor, but a lot of it is seasoning, right? And I have to say that. It's texture, which you get from the meat. So the texture was something that I appreciated. The smell of the cooked meat plus the seasoning. So the smell, you know, brings back memories. But really a lot of the taste was both the fat and the seasoning that went in meat. I realized that if you treat vegetables that way and focus on good seasoning, you know, plants actually have a much more variety of texture. So much more variety. You can crisp it, you can make it tender. And the great thing is that I could eat as much as I want as long as like really whole plant. After a month, remember what did we say? We felt like this is like natural for us, right?
That's
and
right.
I was really shocked by that, right? How did we go from like being like eggs and milk, right? And cheese, right? And of course me, a lot of barbecue, right? Lots and lots of barbecue. To like all of a sudden just going straight plants, you know, plant-based stuff. And it worked. I never was able to sustain weight loss, remember? When I get so stressed out, you know, when I start eating, right? The problem is that with meat and non-plant products, you know, one, I could get a lot of calories in a short period. Plus it's loaded with sugar and salt, right? In most cases, right? Lots of meats are because of the seasoning. A lot of saturated fats, right? And of course, saturated fats we all know now, you know, impairs how our body regulates sugar, or makes us insulin insensitivity. Right? Well, not so much grains, but vegetables definitely fill you up, give you a lot of fiber, without, you know, giving you a lot of calories, right? So per calorie, they have just as much nutrients as any of the other foods out there. You know, all the protein and vitamins, all these great stuff, right? And all these things that they're starting to see that actually fights cancer. We have a situation where meat, not just the saturated fats, right? But also the foreign proteins, right, that they give off, right? Our body can view some of them. And also, you know, the meat that you have could have had some form of disease, right? We have even rare cases of mad cow because not every meat is tested in the United States, right? The reason why most of the antibiotics are used in the animal agriculture industry is because, you know, to ward off, to basically not have these epidemics, right, of diseases. If you let meat contaminate other things, you can actually have cross-contamination. So all those risks are minimized. Like we have less of those, right? Overall, my health has vastly improved. One of the things that we get chillier, right? We have less fat, right? So, you know, we're more sensitive to cold and to cold weather. If we don't focus on making sure we eat properly, right? We can get headaches and be dizzy because we haven't eaten enough, right? We have that issue now. And for a while, before my body adjusted to all the weight loss, I had problems with low blood pressure. For people out there who have high blood pressure, eating plant-based foods, right, can actually positively affect their high blood pressure.
That's right.
In many cases, reverse it, right? Same thing with diabetes. Though one thing that we have to care about is that we eat the right combinations of omegas, right? Or omega-3s, less omega-6s, right? For a while, people who were vegans didn't necessarily have better, you know, health outcomes, right? Than meat eaters, right? Because we find that you know, they ate a lot of vegan junk food, right? And also they focus on a lot of like you know, not the right omegas, right? So we know that better now, and that's why we eat our flax seeds, right, every day. So much omega-3 in flax seeds. You know? So 2 tablespoons a day, right, of flax seeds, either smoothie or you can spread it out, right? I usually put it in, I sprinkle it over like oatmeal. Most people want to turn vegan for health reasons. Now the visible vegans are usually the ones that are activists, right? And they do it for either environment or for, compassion, right? Saving the animals, right? So all 3 of them are very powerful arguments to become vegan. And number one, we know that more and more research are pointing to whole plant foods, right? Being very healthy. And I'm proof of that. My blood pressure is so much better. I've lost weight, I've never been able to maintain weight loss. I've always yo-yoed. I feel amazing, right? And I don't feel depressed, right? Even when things get tough, right? I notice that I respond to tough things. So it could also be I'm just a combination of just feeling healthier and overall well-being, and maybe I feel good about myself, in an additional way than I was before. So overall, it's just been very positive. So health-wise, a big plus, right? Helps with cancer, helps with weight loss. I've only gotten sick once this year, and it was a very short duration. Before, I would regularly feel under the weather at least 4 times, and generally have one major, period where I've been sick for a few days, right? Think about the environment. So if you think about the environment, most of the plants that are grown out there are to feed livestock, right? The bulk of the plants are used to feed, especially the bulk, grains and like soybeans, right, and corn. A lot of it is used to feed animal agriculture. We could actually start planting and harvesting direct foods for humans, right? So plants directly. So all that food that is going toward animals, we can actually redirect toward humans, and that could solve, the whole feeding problem, the world feeding problem, right? Second thing is that we don't have to basically, corral all these animals and give them these really poor quality lives. And then at the end, even the ones that I get to, graze, openly, we kill them, right? However you want to call it. In the end, they get slaughtered, and they don't get to live out a full life. They just, they get to the point where we feel that economically it's time, and they're fattened up, and then we slaughter them, right? We wouldn't have to promote all this death, right? All this death, and people wouldn't have to work in those environments, right? Because we know the health of the people who work in those environments. It really does affect them negatively. Health, environment, and compassion, you can't argue those. Eating plants is the way to go. What about flavor? Well, you can't, it's just different, right? You just have to get used to the plant flavors. And the seasoning, guess what? You can use the same seasonings. The textures, there's actually more texture, more different kinds of texture in the plant world. There's a movement toward plant-based and vegetarian, right, and vegan foods, but it's still a small niche product, right? So as that grows, right, it'll be easier. Is there really a downside? Mm-hmm. I can't think of any. And now that I feel better, I feel like I'm doing something good for me, for the animals, and for the world. I mean, it makes you feel really proud. And I can see why people think that vegans are full of themselves, right? Because when you realize that, you're healthier for yourself, and you're, in a sense, saving resources for the world, right? And you're not contributing to animal suffering, right? So the question now is that the challenge is that can you find, besides being negative about people who are vegan, right? Can you really find an argument against veganism? The only one you can think of is that, what happens to all the people who work in the meat industry? Well, they can work in the plant industry, right? Growing crops.
That's right.
They do that. They don't have to watch, animals suffer every day. You've seen the trend. You see these companies that are hedging their bets. They know their market is shrinking. A good example is milk, right? Dairy is not growing, But guess what? The nut milks are booming, right? I don't know about booming, but they're definitely growing much better than the regular milk, the regular dairy. So you could already see it in the supermarkets. In many of the supermarkets you go there, the nut milks are expanding, and the regular dairy sections is either the same or shrinking. So, and they're doing that because ultimately it's about money for them and infrastructure. So they already have the infrastructure, and they know that one side's growing. So they're just in case they bought companies that did the other stuff, and they're doing both. So it's happening. The question is that why don't you do it? Right? What's stopping you?